My name is Hari Aburi. I'm based in Los Angeles. My entire work focuses on companies, on why they are disruptive, what makes them agile, why are they design-centric, and what are digital natives doing differently as compared to legacy companies. My industry experience has taken me across Asia Pacific, Europe, and North America, Latin America. Most of my industry experience is in complex transformations, change, M&As, integrations. So with that, past 7 years, I've spent understanding why are businesses evolving in the way they should be. So the question is not so much as why companies are disruptive. The question is, what are customers expecting differently from these organizations that forces these companies to think differently? So I want to start with the presumption that any company that really wants to understand its customers must operate, must think, must build at the speed of the customer. That's how I define what I call as the new strategy lens for the new world that we are experiencing today. But history has shown us that leaders have always not been what we call as foresight-oriented. They have never been properly able to see around the corners on disruption that is coming in. So in essence, what we have seen even in today's world is that the distinguishing factor in these companies that are truly disruptive are how leaders think differently about the businesses that they're building. So what we have seen is that companies that are innovative, imaginative, disruptive over a sustained period of time tend to build capabilities that are not natural to them as a company or as an industry. So the question is now, what is it that they're doing? And why are they doing this? So let me take you back into some classical thinking that we have experienced. And we have all been taught to think about businesses in a certain way. So if you look at the classical thinking, we have companies that think like generalists, full-line service players. They're offering a range of products. They tend to be market share leaders. They're capturing large percentage of market share because they're offering a range of products and services, all probably complementary to each other. The second kind of play that we see in this classical thinking is specialists, market specialists. They're deep expertise companies. They bring a whole lot of specialization. And all of these companies actually have built knowledge and create IP in a real-time basis, but they're very niche players. Both these kind of businesses tend to go after what we call as vertical growth. You want to scale up, but you want to scale up in a certain domain expertise area that your company believes, as we have all been taught, core competence. Now, there is nothing more confusing than core competence in today's world, because that could be a fundamental limiting factor for innovation in your company. Let me explain. In the past decade, we have seen evolution of business models, what we call as now platform business models, flywheel effect, network effects. So these companies are aggregators of services. They bring together supply and demand, and they make it easily accessible to consumers like you and me. And every consumer who uses their product or service in effect contributes and adds value to everybody else. So if I took an Uber ride from the airport today to come to the hotel, every other user of Uber has benefited because the collective volume of users is bringing the prices down. It is bringing more drivers in, so it's increasing the supply of the service. And because the prices are getting lower because of usage, there is more people who want to get onto the platform. Now, then we saw this entire, what we call as digital natives over the past 5-7 years, which has forced companies to rethink on how they approach customers. So we have seen B2B, B2C worlds converge into what we call as direct-to-customer thinking. Nike is a great example of that. And I'll go a little bit into Nike as we go forward. And the last one that I want to explain that we have seen over the last, especially 3 years, is what we call as super app business models. Grab is one such company. It's a Southeast Asian company based in Indonesia. But we have other examples as well. We have a few more emerging examples in North America. But I'll explain the difference between the three. But what these super app business models do very differently is that they're not necessarily aggregators. They're not saying there's a demand and supply. It is a really good mix of platform businesses. It's a good mix of direct-to-customer thinking, and they're able to integrate services that actually do not belong to them or they don't provide seamlessly as a service to follow the customer. That is pretty much the logic on how you build the capabilities that we are talking about. When you begin to follow the customer, you will tend to think very differently about your strategy. In the past, we said areas of adjacency is good. So if you were having a coffee shop and then you brought in marble loaf cake, that was area of adjacency. If you added bottles of water, if you added frozen food, if you added panini that could be heated and served, that was areas of adjacency, right? So many companies have tried to scale or innovate through what we call as areas of adjacency thinking. But the advent of platform business models, direct-to-customer thinking, and super apps has challenged that value proposition. And that's where we go and say, these companies that are truly disruptive over a long period of time tend to follow their customer. And here is the most important reason why they follow the customer. In the customer's mind, there are no industry boundaries. So can your leaders and can your company think like how the customer is thinking? When you wake up in the morning, when you walk to your refrigerator and you pick up a glass of milk, how many industries do you touch as a consumer? And if you're able to follow that pattern of thinking of a consumer or a customer, your business models tend to look very, very different. Grab is one such company. This is a snapshot of their super app. Now let me explain Grab in a little more detail. They have insurance. They are Singapore's first neobank. They have a grocery service. They've actually brought a grocery chain like Whole Foods in Malaysia called Jaya Grocers. They are a ride-hailing company. They started like an Uber's competitor. In fact, they bought Uber's business in Southeast Asia. They are into gaming. They're into entertainment and streaming. Now, imagine the way that super app thinking is allowing them to follow their customer, even though some of the services actually are not produced, designed, or owned by them. And that is the reason why you see scale through innovation coming through. So in the past, we looked at scale through vertical growth, but we're looking at scale through innovation, if you may. They're pretty large. They actually are, they're present in almost 400 plus cities, and they scale up very quickly. It's a very innovative model. Now, obviously, there are challenges to such thinking. It's not easy. But however, the way they follow their customer is truly commendable. Quick comparison between them and Amazon. You look at the services on the left, and the dots tell you how they're present in each of the segments. But you look at Netflix. All of you know that Netflix has a growth problem. The reason why Netflix has a growth problem is because it has vertical growth focus. It has what we call a single industry thinking. I have long said for the last 5-6 years that Netflix should have been a neobank in all the countries that they're present in, because they had the best digital capability on the planet, even better than Nike's, before Nike's digital transformation. So what prevented Netflix from thinking through a platform, direct to customer, and a super app business model thinking, and now they're slowly catching on to it through gaming, but that's not enough. So we have seen wherever there are platforms, wherever there is direct to customer digital play, and wherever we have seen super app business model, the value generated by these companies is exponential. Quick data points for you. The new age businesses generate 17 times more value or in valuation at just 1/4 of the traditional workforce, right? And that's how these companies tend to be disruptive. Now, how do these companies do it? These companies do it, and I'm going to take you through my favorite company and brand example, Starbucks. You see that in 2022, the number of people who have downloaded and used Starbucks mobile app is 32 million users. 32.8 to be specific. Now, how many of you here are on some kind of a Starbucks app or a card? Quick show of hands. Right. What you're doing is that you're loading your money onto the app even before you have decided when you would purchase that single cup of coffee in future. Therefore, Starbucks is actually one of the, what I would call the neatest and compact banks in US. It has almost $1.4 billion of cash, unused, loaded by consumers in advance to a coffee that you may never purchase for the next 6 months. So what is funding their innovation? Their super app thinking, direct-to-customer thinking, and the network effects they create, because the more consumers who come onto the platform, the more experience you create. But however, it has had its share of challenges. Starbucks has always been known to be the third place. It's a place that you go away from your house or from your office. You enjoy free Wi-Fi, great music, good ambience, right? You see a lot of meetings taking place, a lot of people sitting working. You see a lot of pets hanging out there, kids coming in there. But their digital push has challenged that core value proposition. In the past, a coffee buyer in a store, for every one purchase in the store, and I sit down and have coffee, now translated into about 10 to 15 drive-ins, right? But now you have an app, because you can order on the app, you can go pick it up. So the one person in the store equals 15 people driving in, equals almost 25 people ordering on the app and picking it up. The pressure on the store is immense, because digital does not change the store structure. It is still 500 square feet. It's still got the same amount of machines that it has. So the renovation plan or the rejuvenation plan that they put in place accounts for that. So what happened was that you see the number of users, active users of the mobile app, and you see a typical flywheel on the right side. That's not a Starbucks flywheel. The reason why they got stuck in this reinvention journey is that they didn't have the breakthrough of the flywheel, the hand drawing that you see around it. They didn't follow their customer to think differently, and therefore they could not build new set of capabilities, which is exactly what now they're trying to do. So the new plan of refreshing this experience centers around modernizing the equipment and the tools available to their baristas, right? It involves creating experiences for their customers which are different from the traditional one, and it involves strong partnerships. So if you look at what they're doing now is they have launched an NFT-based loyalty program. They are trying to do a partnership with EV charging companies so that it becomes a network. So I may not buy up a coffee, but I can actually come in and charge my car, which creates an extra set of revenue for you. It's a new revenue stream. It's a new way to introduce consumers to your core experience of coffee, and there's much more coming in. But that takes me to my next favorite example, which is Nike. It all started with building an unnatural capability right at the top. They hired a CEO who came in from eBay, steeped in technology, steeped in marketplace experiences, steeped in influencer thinking and creator economy. It became one of the most technology-based, consumer-centric powerhouses that we know today in the marketplace. And that's the reason why they're way ahead of the game in how they serve their customers, including pulling out from all the retailers that they were partnering with. It is one of the best brands to benchmark with from a consumer brand standpoint and a B2B business model standpoint. And that is really, and they've outperformed every single index. In fact, their stock performance has outperformed everybody in the fashion industry, including Burberry, LVMH, etc. And in terms of digital capabilities itself, they're way ahead in any of the industries of apparel, footwear, or fashion. But then you see how the company is changing. When you look at the kind of jobs they begin to hire, they're all very different. They're no longer hiring store associates. They're no longer hiring warehouse managers. All of their jobs that you see now come out into almost like a technology. You could actually be hiring for any technology company today. Architects for platforms, service engineers for platforms, right? So pricing strategists for platforms, customer service specialists for platforms and digital play, If you're not on the Nike app, it's almost like I'm getting a commission from them. I can assure you I'm not. It's a very addictive app. It's as addictive as Starbucks. It's as addictive as Amazon. And the creator economy that they're using to influence new designs is very, very powerful. Now, Nike has sold $185 million worth of NFTs in the last 6 months. And that is funding their innovation, as compared to Adidas, which is roughly around $10 million. Any company that has to experiment with ideas will end up creating two things. It will end up creating a platform to follow the customer. It will end up creating new revenue streams that fund innovation. Because if you don't follow the customer and if you're not able to create new revenue streams, your innovation gets stunted because it lacks just fundamental resources. They also partnered with Roblox, which is a metaverse gaming experience company, and they had 7 million visitors. Even if 5% of that 7 million buy a shoe, which is an average of $110, you have a new revenue stream. But that experience that you build now can translate into something else. That's how you build communities in the direct-to-customer play and the new digital play. So let me bring it all together for you in my last segment. Where do you start, and how do you start in your companies? What we have seen is that these kind of companies that build unnatural capabilities to really disrupt the marketplace build 5 sets of capabilities. They actually have a great ideas ecosystem, influencers, creators, artists, etc., who come in. TikTok is a great example. Did you know that TikTok is the second highest sales channel for Barnes & Noble? TikTok is the #1 financial advisor channel for teens in US. TikTok is now a food service delivery because if you see food on it, they have a tie-up with Grubhub. They're tied up with ghost kitchens and Grubhub delivers it. So you could be cooking food at home, copying your recipe from TikTok, and Grubhub delivers it. That is a creator economy, right? And then you have obviously the customer flywheels and the network effects. How do you bring more people in? How does that circulation impact your service levels, your pricing, etc.? You have design. Design-centric companies generate 3 times more value than non-design-centric companies. That's why Apple is so powerful, at least in the past tense. In my view, it's not the design company that we need to benchmark with. But they have created products like AirPods. AirPods is a $1.1 billion product by itself, right? Which people keep losing all the time. Therefore, the flywheel effect is you buy the product, you lose one AirPod, you buy another one. That's how the flywheel works. Now, technology, of course, is a given. But technology, again, is about digital platforms that help you change the game. It's not about, everybody can build a platform these days. But really, how do you mimic that ecosystem that you want to build with that technology that you have is where the differentiator is. And the last one is skills. Do you have the right skills in your company? Are you able to realize the value of gig talent that's available globally to come in and do high expertise jobs? Can you reimagine your workforce through a mix of seamless automation between humans and technology? This is one way to look at it as to where you can start. Can you build these 5 ecosystems in your company? But then it brings the challenge back to leadership. You cannot escape the fact that leaders are directly correlational to winning strategies. Yes, you can say there are 100 other factors, I give that to you. But the thinking is what matters. Because without the thought and the idea, the companies don't change. So if you look at what I've tried to do is illustrate inverse V of sorts or diagonal V of sorts. Typically what happens in companies is the customer is changing every day. I had a great experience with one service or a product. I go to a completely different set of experiences in a product and say, why can't this service be like this? Right? You're always in your mind comparing, because remember again, in the customer's mind, there are no industry boundaries. You may be a mobile services company, but maybe you're being benchmarked with a bakery service. That's how a customer thinks, right? So, but then you're trying to say, the customer is changing fast, let me put technology to solve the problem. And the leaders are trying to catch up, and the organization is trying to catch up. So if the customer is changing every single day, by the time the organization catches up, it's almost 3 to 4 years. On an average, business models go obsolete on Wall Street every 3.6 years. So if your strategy to change the company is 3.5 years, you're no longer relevant by the time you get there. So conversely, when you start building unnatural capabilities in your company, what happens is your leaders are thinking at the speed of the customer. Therefore, they're preparing their organization to adopt technologies faster than the rest of the marketplace or your competitors. Now, if you notice, in this entire conversation of 20 minutes, I've mentioned the word competitors only twice, second time when I repeated it. But I've repeated the word customer over and over again. It is not so much so of your competitive landscape that really matters. It is very important that you understand that do you have the capability to follow your customer through a certain set of capabilities that you need to build in the company. And I'll close with one nice example. There's a holding company called JAB, J-A-B. It's a $20 billion coffee empire. In 2019, they entered into pet foods and pet clinics because in US alone, pet foods and pet clinics is $130 billion business. Now, what is the dot that they connected between coffee and pets? They understood consumer behavior that every person who has a pet who drinks coffee in the morning has their pet sitting next to them. That is as simple as a connection of following the customer. And then suddenly you're into a $130 billion marketplace from a $20 billion company. So that's really how these companies reimagine their capabilities and win in the marketplace.